Criminals are turning dirty money into clean cash right under our noses, and their methods will shock you. Smurfing. Imagine trying to sneak candy into a movie theater. Instead of carrying one giant bag that would raise eyebrows, you hand out small packets to your friends. They slip in unnoticed. That's smurfing in the money world. Let's say someone has a mountain of illegal cash. They can't drop it all at once into a bank because it would set off alarms. So, they chop it into smaller, less suspicious amounts, maybe under 10,000 each, and spread those deposits across different branches and different days. Sometimes they even hire helpers, nicknamed Smurfs, to do the running around. On paper, it looks like normal banking. But in reality, the theater is filling up with candy, one tiny packet at a time. It works because most systems only start paying attention once you cross a specific threshold, and staying under it keeps the heat away. Layering. So now the money is inside the system. But here's the catch. Banks and investigators can still follow the trail, just like you can track muddy footprints across a clean floor. To deal with that, criminals use layering. This is all about making the money's path so twisted that anyone chasing it eventually gives up. Imagine running through a hedge maze blindfolded. That's layering. The cash gets wired across accounts, bounced between countries, flipped into foreign currencies, or tied up in fake invoices. It can move through dozens of accounts in a single afternoon. The purpose isn't to grow the money, but to bury its story. By the time investigators dig through one layer, another is waiting. It's like trying to unmix a blended smoothie. Once it's swirled around enough, good luck figuring out where each piece of fruit originally came from. Integration. After all the running and twisting, the money has one last hurdle. It needs to reappear looking squeaky clean. That's where integration comes in. Think of it like laundering your gym clothes. You can't just stuff them back into your drawer sweaty. They have to come out fresh, folded, and ready to wear. In this stage, the money is pushed back into the economy through things that look totally normal. Maybe it's buying a house and flipping it for profit. Maybe it's running a business that claims the cash was earned through sales. Sometimes it shows up as stock investments, gambling winnings, or even loan repayments. Once it's integrated, the money behaves like any other dollar. It can buy cars, yachts, or even influence, and no one would ever guess it started out tied to drugs, fraud, or smuggling operations. Cash-intensive businesses. Picture a pizza shop on a busy Friday night. Orders are flying, the cash register never stops ringing, and nobody outside knows how much money really passed across the counter. That's why cash-heavy businesses are a laundromat's best friend. If a cafe genuinely makes $2,000 a day, the owner might quietly claim they made $4,000. That extra $2,000 didn't come from cappuccinos. It came from dirty money slipped into the till. Once reported as sales, it looks legitimate. The beauty for criminals is that it's boring. Nobody questions a bar that claims a booming weekend. Auditing every receipt, every slice of pizza, every beer poured would take serious manpower. Some businesses don't even bother to make sense. The food might be bad, the location terrible, but they stay open for years because the real profit is happening behind the register. Trade-based laundering. Think of trade as the world's biggest game of Monopoly, with goods constantly moving around the board. Launderers hide in that shuffle. They might ship an empty container across borders but invoice it as if it's packed with luxury goods. Or they load a container with cheap knockoffs but charge buyers like it's filled with premium electronics. That inflated invoice becomes the perfect excuse to move giant sums of money internationally without raising suspicion. On paper, it looks like a regular shipment. In reality, it's a money transfer disguised as trade. This trick works because customs officers can't open and verify every crate, and global prices fluctuate anyway. So even if something looks a little odd, it might still pass. For criminals, trade is like a perfect hiding spot under the chaos of global commerce, where paperwork often tells bigger lies than people. Black market peso exchange. Picture this. A Colombian cartel is sitting on mountains of US dollars from drug sales. But how do they get those dollars home without stuffing them into suitcases? Enter the black market peso exchange. Here's how it works. The cartel hands the dirty cash to a broker inside the US. That broker sells the dollars to Colombian importers who need them to pay American suppliers for legitimate goods. Those importers pay pesos to the broker's contacts back in Colombia, so the cartel ends up with clean pesos at home, while the importers get the dollars they need abroad. Meanwhile, the broker quietly launders the cartel's dollars by buying everyday products, shipping them overseas, and getting paid on the other side. On the surface, everything looks normal. Goods are traded, payments made. Underneath, it's a synchronized swap turning dirty cash clean. Real estate laundering. Imagine buying a beachside condo, not for the ocean view, but for what it can hide. Real estate is one of the easiest covers for laundering money. A criminal sets up a company, purchases property, and later sells it, sometimes to themselves under another name. On paper, it looks like a standard sale. In practice, the same money just did a lap around the block, only now it looks legitimate. The beauty of real estate is that prices are subjective. One buyer may happily pay millions while another calls it overpriced. That gray zone creates the perfect cover. Plus, property records often hide the true owner behind companies or trusts. That's why you see luxury apartments sitting empty for years. They're not homes. They're vaults. Money is parked, polished, and eventually released back into the economy without raising too many eyebrows. Shell companies. Think of a shell company like a Halloween costume for money. It looks like a business from the outside. It might have a name, a bank account, even a fancy website. But behind the mask, there's nothing. No office, no employees, no product. Just an empty shell. These shells can be set up in places with loose regulations, like certain offshore territories. Once created, they move money around under the cover of fake consulting fees, bogus invoices, or ownership of other shell companies. The genius of this setup is how many layers can be built. One shell owns another, which owns another, until investigators are lost in a maze. And since creating them isn't illegal by itself, it's hard to tell when they cross the line. For launderers, shells are like nesting dolls, hiding dirty money inside endless layers of paper. Bank complicity. Most laundering tactics sneak around banks, but sometimes the bank itself holds the door wide open. Think about it like a bouncer at a nightclub who not only lets you skip the line, but waves you straight to the VIP section. In this case, insiders at banks either look the other way or actively help move suspicious funds. It could be a teller ignoring red flags, a manager pressured by higher-ups, or an entire institution chasing profits. When this happens, millions or even billions can flow straight through the system without alarms ever sounding. Investigators later find patterns of obvious laundering that somehow pass routine checks. Whether through bribes, negligence, or willful blindness, the result is the same. The bank's stamp of approval gives dirty money the ultimate disguise, because nothing looks more legitimate than cash cleared by a respected financial institution. Offshore accounts. Picture hiding your valuables not under your mattress but in a neighbor's house across town, where no one can search without permission. That's the idea behind offshore accounts. They're bank accounts opened in countries known for secrecy, like the Cayman Islands or Switzerland. Criminals love them because those jurisdictions ask fewer questions and rarely share information. You might create a company there, open a bank account in its name, and wire in dirty money. From that point, it can be invested in stocks, real estate, or businesses worldwide. On paper, the money belongs to the company, not you. That wall of secrecy makes it nearly impossible to connect the dots back to the real owner. While offshore accounts can be legal, when they're used to stash criminal profits, they become the perfect safe house, locking dirty money behind layers of fog. Hawala networks. Now, imagine Venmo without apps, banks, or receipts. Just trust. That's Hawala. Originating centuries ago in South Asia, it's a system where money moves without physically moving. Here's how it works. You hand cash to a Hawala broker in New York. He calls his contact in Mumbai and tells them to give the equivalent amount to your recipient. No wires, no records, just a handshake promise. Later, the brokers settle debts between themselves, maybe with goods, maybe with offsetting payments. Criminals love Hawala because there's little paperwork. It's fast, cheap, and built on relationships rather than regulations. To authorities, the money looks invisible, like it was teleported. For communities where banks are limited, Hawala is vital and not criminal. But in the wrong hands, it becomes a perfect cloak, letting dirty money hop across continents without ever touching the official financial system. Cryptocurrency laundering. Imagine taking cash and dropping it into a blender that scrambles every bill into digital confetti. That's how cryptocurrency laundering can feel. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin are decentralized, meaning they don't rely on banks. Transactions can be moved across borders instantly, and while they're technically traceable, mixing services scramble coins together, making it hard to follow. A criminal might swap dirty dollars for crypto, move it through anonymous wallets, run it through mixers, then cash it out in another country. On the surface, it looks like normal trading. But in reality, the money is running laps around the globe under a digital mask. The allure is that crypto is fast, global, and less regulated. For law enforcement, chasing those transactions is like trying to follow footprints in a sandstorm, where the trail fades almost as quickly as it appears. Gambling, laundering. Picture walking into a casino with dirty cash. You buy a stack of chips, play a few rounds of blackjack, maybe lose some, maybe win some, then cash out. Now you've got a check from the casino. Suddenly, your money looks like legitimate gambling winnings. That's one classic laundering move. It doesn't stop at casinos either. Online gambling platforms can serve the same purpose. A launderer might cycle money through poker games, sometimes playing against themselves, so the winnings look real. The magic here is that gambling is naturally unpredictable. Nobody questions a lucky streak or a losing night. On paper, the casino payout is legitimate income. In reality, the chips were just a disguise. It's like taking dirty laundry, running it through a spin cycle, and pulling out fresh folded clothes. Except the clothes are stacks of cash ready to spend. Professional gatekeepers. Here's a twist. Sometimes, laundering doesn't happen in secret basements, but in polished offices with lawyers, accountants, and consultants. These professionals act as gatekeepers, whether knowingly or by turning a blind eye. Imagine wanting to sneak into an exclusive club. Instead of climbing a fence, you hire a member to escort you inside. That's the role of gatekeepers in laundering. They help set up companies, open accounts, draft contracts, and explain away suspicious transfers. On paper, everything looks legal, but the fingerprints of dirty money are hidden under layers of formal paperwork. The troubling part is how hard it becomes to prove intent. Was the lawyer clueless or complicit? Was the accountant negligent or strategic? For criminals, these gatekeepers are like locksmiths, handing them the keys to the financial system and making the laundering look polished instead of shady. Luxury goods laundering. Imagine buying a diamond watch not because you love the sparkle, but because it's a portable vault. Luxury goods are another favorite laundering route. Dirty money gets turned into high-value items like art, cars, or jewelry. Why? Because once purchased, these items can be resold, pawned, or even passed across borders without as much scrutiny as stacks of cash. A painting on a wall doesn't scream crime, but it might hold millions in hidden value. The resale later makes the money appear legitimate. Plus, luxury markets often thrive on privacy. Many buyers and sellers stay anonymous, and prices can be subjective. What's expensive to one person might be outrageous to another. That wiggle room gives cover. For launderers, it's like pressing dirty cash into a shiny diamond, then polishing it back into clean funds when the time is right.